Have you ever struggled with feeling like nothing has meaning in life? No purpose at all, nothing at all, that nothing ever matters? Well, if that's the case, then you want to watch this video because I'm going to tell you the antidote to nihilism. And at the end, I'm going to give you a free gift in order for you to have a bit more clarity in your life. So listen up.
I think we all have the point. Everyone just tries to like.
So nihilism is pretty much the conviction that life has no intrinsic meaning. There's different types of nihilism. There's like moral nihilism and all that, but we're going to talk about the existential nihilism. This is the nihilism that touches upon the fact that really life has no meaning, intrinsic meaning. And from Wikipedia, it's pretty much that life is without objective meaning, purpose, or intrinsic value. And where does that come from? Where does nihilism come from? It begins from pessimism. According to Friedrich Nietzsche, a philosopher, he says that nihilism originates from a pessimistic state. You start from having negative thoughts, pessimistic thoughts. And why is that so depressing? You say, well, because us humans, we really need some sort of meaning. We really need a purpose and a meaning in our life. And according to Viktor Frankl, a psychologist who wrote the book Man's Search for Meaning, he said that according to logotherapy, which is, his therapy method of helping people find meaning in their lives, he says that according to logotherapy, the striving to find a meaning in one's life is the primary motivational force in a man. According to Arthur Schopenhauer, the need for meaning, where did that arise from, right? The inevitability of suffering plus our inescapable death created the need for meaning. So let me repeat that. The inevitability of suffering plus or inescapable death leads to a need for meaning. Now, why is that? Well, because you're gonna die someday, right? And because you're gonna die someday, well, you want your life to matter because you're not gonna live forever. So while you're here on earth, you want it to have some sort of purpose. Why? Because of the time that you have. If you were to live forever, right? If you were to live forever and that there was no suffering in life, would you even need some sort of meaning? Well, I'm happy. Well, if you're happy already and all that, people who are happy already, they're not looking for a meaning. They already have it. Their meaning is in the here, the now, they're happy. But because there's inevitable suffering and inevitable death at the end, you need some form of meaning and fulfillment. And those two things those are really the human condition. But you can find meaning in that suffering, right? You can really find that meaning in that suffering. And here's pretty much what Nietzsche has to say. He says that man, the bravest of animals, and the one most accustomed to suffering, does not repudiate suffering as such, he desires it. He even seeks it out, provided he is shown a meaning for it, a purpose of suffering. The meaninglessness of suffering, not suffering itself, was the curse that lay over mankind so far. So, really, let me read that to you again. Okay, it's such a beautiful quote. Man, the bravest of animals, and the one most accustomed to suffering, does not repudiate suffering as such. He desires it. He even seeks it out, provided he is shown a meaning for it. Okay, that's the emphasis here. And a purpose. The meaninglessness of suffering, not suffering itself, was the curse that lay over mankind so far. You ever wondered why certain men want to go to war, certain people want to go to war, and they would rather die on the battlefield than live a mediocre life? Well, exactly, because in that suffering, there's meaning in that suffering. There is some sort of purpose in that suffering. It's not suffering for nothing. We genuinely need some form of challenge. That's what he meant, Nietzsche. About the idea of suffering, I'm not sure I agree with, but the idea that we need some sort of challenge, we need to seek out something. And by that seeking out, yes, there will be suffering, there will be obstacles to overcome, and that's part of the human condition. But you need to seek out that sort of challenge in your life in order to be happy, in order to be fulfilled. And it's crazy the amount of people who think that life is all about having fun and all that, and short-term fun and all that. This couldn't be further from the truth. We are animals who need some sort of task. We've got hands, we got feet, we can run, we can fly, we can create. That's why we were born. That's what he's talking about. Is that the case for you? Do you feel like life has no meaning? That life is completely meaningless, that there's no fucking purpose to it, that we're all gonna die anyways and there's nothing you can do about it, right? Now, what do you do with that if you feel that way? The antidote to nihilism that Nietzsche talks about is that he says you gotta take an active stance towards your nihilism. You know, you can become a passive nihilist and pretty much conclude, you know what, nothing has meaning, you know, we can't do anything about it, and then you just lay down and die or lay down and do nothing. But you can take an active approach to it and like actively seek out that meaning, actively seek out that purpose, actively seek out transformation, change, challenge in your life, instead of just sitting down and doing nothing. Because the way he describes it, he says that it is a transitional stage, right? Nihilism should not be something that you have forever. And it's pretty much, it's an overgeneralization. It's logically false. It is false because it really is overgeneralization. It's like you have certain beliefs about life that happen to you. You have certain belief about something, that a particular thing is meaningless. And therefore what you do is you extrapolate from that thing that everything in life is meaningless. All right, that's a common fallacy that people make. So for example, I don't know, for example, you study a certain field, you know, you study to become a lawyer, and midway through you realize, you know what, that degree is completely meaningless. I don't even like law, I just wanted to do it because my parents wanted me to do it. It's completely meaningless, therefore, you know what, studying is completely meaningless. It's fucking, everything's meaningless, fuck it. But that's false. Instead of saying that, you know, the act of studying is meaningless, that life is meaningless, it's like, well, okay, you know what? That degree that I did wasn't aligned with who I am, but I'm gonna find a field of study that is meaningful. Now you see the difference? It's like, it's really throwing the baby with the bathwater. So, for example, you know, some people, they like, they tried dating in the past, they've been in a few relationships or whatever, and then let's say woman's been with a few boyfriends, and she realized, well, you know what, in none of my relationships was I really fully happy. There was always something missing. Therefore, there's no meaning to relationships, there's no meaning to life. And you know, my life was all about relationships, and now I realize none of those relationships make me happy. Guess what? Life is meaningless, you know, no point to it. Which is really another erroneous generalization. So instead of concluding, well, you know what, relationships are all meaningless, life is meaningless, well, how about, you know what, you learn from those negative relationships, and you know what, you keep seeking out that perfect relationships, you keep seeking out that love, you keep seeking out, you know, that positive experience, that positive, you know, what you want in life instead. Instead of rejecting the old belief of like, you know, my degree is meaningless, you pretty much just assume that finding meaning at all is a futile pursuit, well, which couldn't be further from the truth. Active nihilism was pretty much nihilism as a sign of increased power of the spirit. So you increase the power of your spirit, you increase your resolve, you increase your resilience, and you keep, you know, you take your old belief, okay? You decide, you realize what was false, what was bad about your life, whatever, that negative thing, and you're like, you know what, I'm gonna keep searching, it doesn't matter. You keep relentlessly searching for that meaning, relentlessly searching for that purpose. The passive form is nihilism as a decline and recession of the power of the spirit. Pretty much the inverse. So that's what will happen to you if you don't take an active approach. Pretty much the active nihilists are those who have the strength to plow through, those who have the strength to overcome their feelings of meaninglessness and to find, you know, the beliefs, the right beliefs, that to overcome those false beliefs. Destroy all previously held beliefs that were now proven false. For example, you thought that studying in that specific field would be meaningful to you. You thought that if you became a doctor, that would become meaningful to you, but then along the way you realize it is meaningless to you, it has no meaning to you, so then you actively, violently find a different path. You carve your own path, as I like to say, as I said in my video on how to overcome your quarter-life crisis, pretty much you're gonna carve your own fucking path for that. So what do you do with nihilism? Should you believe in it? Should you not believe in it? What should you do with it? So pretty much my answer is, whether it's true or not, really should move beyond it, because nihilism, what it does is it will really sap your energy. It will take away all of your energy. If you look at the concentration camp inmates from the book Man's Search for Meaning from Viktor Frankl, he pretty much says that the people who lost their meaning, their purpose, that they lost their point for staying alive, were pretty much going to die instantly. They were not going to survive in any way, shape, or form. But those who kept that purpose in mind, that meaning in mind, that they were trying to stay alive for their wife who was waiting for them back wherever she was, if she was still alive. Once you have that purpose, it gives you so much more energy to continue, so much more vitality to continue. So that's why you want to keep nihilism at bay. So how to overcome nihilism? Here we get into the juicy part as to how to overcome all that shit. Here's what Nietzsche has to say. So nihilism pretty much is an opportunity to grow. And number one, what you got to do is you got to realize your potential. You got to realize that inside of you, there is a seed of potential that can grow to a magnificent tree if you let it happen, if you take effort, and if you water that seed. Take responsibility. Don't blame the supernatural. Don't blame God. Don't blame, the external world. Take responsibility for your life instead of blaming it on certain external things. Number three, become who you are. What he says pretty much is to become who we are is, as human beings who are new, unique, incomparable, who give themselves laws, who create themselves. Just create yourself. Create yourself. Don't let the environment dictate who you are. Don't let your parents tell you what to do. Create yourself. Create who you are. Create your own values. Create your own morals. Create your own future. So in really how you do that is you have a goal, you have a vision, and you make it difficult. You make it difficult enough so that in order to achieve it, you really have to change who you are. You have to actualize your potential. What have you truly loved up to now? What has elevated your soul? What has mastered it? And at the same time, delighted it. You have to also find what really, what you love, pretty much. That's what he means. You find what you love, you create a goal around it, and you make it difficult enough so that you have to grow yourself in order to achieve it. You have to really reach your full potential to achieve that goal, right? And it has to be big enough. The greater the goal that you want to achieve, the greater one has to become in order to achieve it. And why do people fail to achieve that? Why do people fail to achieve their potential? Why do people fail to really reach their vision? Why do people fail to overcome nihilism? It's because they see suffering as evil. Now, is suffering evil? Well, it could be seen as evil, but I don't think it is evil at all. If you look at suffering, pain, happiness, pain, pleasure, love, happiness, there are so many opposites to life, and to have one thing, you also have to have its opposites. So there wouldn't be happiness without suffering. Really, suffering, there's no intrinsic moral stance as to what it is. Is it evil? Is it good or bad? And because people see it as evil because it feels bad, they just assume it's evil. But really, in the suffering itself, there's no really good or bad. Where's good or bad in suffering? We've invented it. We've invented the fact that it is good or bad. And it's not because something feels bad that it is bad. So you have to see suffering as an opportunity to grow, as an opportunity to find meaning and purpose in it. In your depths of suffering, in your depths of despair, depths of your depression, you have to be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel, that this suffering will lead to something if you let it happen. The only thing that can prove today whether one is worth anything or not is that one endures. What are the two obstacles to overcome nihilism? According to Nietzsche, number one, fear. Number two, laziness. Number one, fear. Why is that? Because your higher self, that he calls it, really speaks demandingly. Your higher self really wants you, really demands crazy things of you, really demands the most difficult things of you, the most challenging things of you. Your higher self is telling you, you're gonna save the fucking world. The higher self is telling you, you're gonna go to the gym 5 times a week for 6 to 12 months, every single week. Your higher self says, I'm gonna become a millionaire by the end of this life. Your higher self says, I wanna achieve all those great things that all of my friends and all of my peers tell me I'll never be able to do. And I'm gonna fucking prove them wrong. That's what your higher self will say. Your higher self says, I want this world to become a better place and I'm gonna do whatever it takes in my power to do so. So it speaks really demandingly, and because it is so demanding that we fear it. Because it is so demanding and because it stretches us beyond our comfort zone, it is why we fear it. We fear anything that is beyond where we are right now. Anything that stretches us beyond our existent place where we are right now, right? Anything that stretches us beyond the status quo, we'll be afraid of it. And you have to plow through this constantly in your fucking life in order to overcome nihilism. Number 2, plain old laziness. Plain old laziness, right? Because to really find that purpose, to find that meaning in your life, of course, you'll have to exert some effort. Because, as he said, there will be suffering. There will be suffering. And you have to plow through that discomfort. And really, laziness is staying where you are, that status quo, this lack of movement, this lack of willingness to move. It's not even lack of movement, it's like you don't even have the willingness to move. That's the thing. But can you develop this willingness? Yes. Now I've talked a lot about Viktor Frankl. Now I've talked a lot about Friedrich Nietzsche. Who are other people? What are other ways to overcome nihilism? Let's look at Jordan Peterson. What does he say? He says, have a load, carry your load. Have an aim, right? He says pretty much, you have to bear some sort of responsibility in your life. You have to find, when you feel like everything is meaningless, you need some sort of challenge, of responsibility, right? Carry your load, whatever that is, your family that you want to raise, or whatever that is, you want to become a successful musician, whatever that is. Carry a load, do something, make something useful of yourself. That's what he says. Have an aim. If you have no aim, if you have no vision, pretty much you're doomed to nihilism. Right? You have to carry a load. You have to go through suffering. Turn your suffering into something that is meaningful. Right? Do not do what is expedient. Do what is meaningful. That's what he says too. Be an antidote to chaos, like he likes to say. There's so much chaos in the world, so much, things going on right now. And if you can be that antidote to that chaos and have some sort of contribution to that chaos, that's why he says clean your room all the time. Because if you can clean your room, if you can solve the chaos in your own environment, in your own life, then you can possibly help other people to solve their own chaos in their lives. Does that make sense? Right? And pretty much that's what I do as well. That's why I talk to clients. That's why I do coaching calls, because I want to help people get out of their fucking chaos. I want to help them find clarity. I want to help them find the light at the end of the tunnel. And to do that, you need to get out of that funk. You need to carry a load. Be willing to carry a load. And for that clarity, you can book a free consultation call with me anytime. How do you overcome nihilism according to Viktor Frankl, the author of the book Man's Search for Meaning? He says 2 things. Well, he says many things, but the first 2 things are that he says that you can find meaning and purpose in every single second of your life. It's a bit of a twist on Eckhart Tolle, Eckhart Tolle says all that exists is the present moment. Viktor Frankl says that yes, the present moment exists, but the past is just as important, because every single second of your life, everything that you do is rendered into history for the rest of time. Every single second that you're living right now will be imprinted in history, will be imprinted in the past forever. Now, you could argue whether, it's going to stay or not, whether people are going to remember or not, but that is a fact, that every second that you live will be imprinted into the past. And you always have the choice. You always have the freedom of the choice as to how that next second of your life will be imprinted. How will you choose that next second that's going to come right after this second, and this second, and this second? How are you going to choose how it's spent? How are you going to choose what's going to happen to that second and every other second of your life? So you have to determine that as well. And what he says, that your freedom of choice can never be taken away from you. Your ability to react to things, your ability to respond to things will never be taken away by anything or anyone. That's how he survived the concentration camps, because he chose how to respond to his external environment, not by reacting, not by fighting against it, but by finding meaning and purpose. And that no one could take away from him. And he says that you can find meaning in 3 things. So 1, by creating a work or doing a deed, which is pretty self-explanatory. Number 2, by experiencing something or encountering someone, for example, love, right? And number 3, by the attitude we take towards unavoidable suffering. Let's start from the first one, from you can find meaning in doing a work or a deed. That's pretty much what I talk about all the time. Find your passion, find your purpose, and help to find clarity in your life, you know. That's what I talk about with all of my clients. That's the work that we do. Finding that meaning, and to find that deed, really you just gotta look inside. And it's crazy how obvious it can be. Like, I've had one client of mine that I talked to, I think I've said that in a previous video, but she said, like, I have no idea what my passion and purpose is, but I really, really, really like helping people XYZ. I don't remember what she said. It's like, it's right in front of your nose. The action and deed that will bring meaning and purpose is right in front of your nose often. But, you know, some people just don't see it. Number 2, you can find meaning through a particular event or by encountering someone. And what he likes to say is that through love, you help to actualize the potential of someone else. And for that reason, there can be meaning to be found in it. When a mother brings her child to school, to the soccer game or whatever it is, she helps her child to actualize his potential of becoming, you know, a great student or whatever it's going to become, right? So that's one thing you can do. And number 3, you can find meaning in unavoidable suffering. Because in your suffering, you can find meaning. So for example, there's a story in the book. There was an old man who came back to Viktor Frankl, you know, for a psychiatry session. He was like, my wife died of cancer or what, I don't know what it was, and I have no meaning to my life now. Like, this is horrible. It's the worst thing that happened. Viktor Frankl just flipped the switch and he said, well, I understand that can be really painful and all that, but what if it happened to you instead? What if you died and she had to bear all that suffering? How would that be? And then he said, the old man said, well, that'll be much more horrible. That'll be horrible. Like if I died, then my wife would have to go through the rest of her life suffering. And then Viktor Frankl said, well, exactly. Because the fact that she died and not you, now you saved her of all that suffering that she could have experienced. Instead, destiny, God decided that you were going to bear that suffering for her. You suffer right now in your life, so she didn't have to suffer. You suffer in your life right now, so she can rest in peace, you know? And then the old man just shook the hand of Viktor Frankl and walked away, never needed to come back to psychiatry ever again. That's the meaning of suffering. That the only really transitory aspects of life are the potentialities. But as soon as they are actualized, they are rendered realities at that very moment. They are seized and delivered into the past, wherein they are rescued and preserved from transitoriness. For in the past, nothing is irretrievably lost, but everything irrevocably stored. So like I said, every second of your life can become meaningful and will be rendered into the past for eternity. Now we've talked about everyone's take on nihilism. What's my take on nihilism? How do you solve nihilism? How do you solve all this meaninglessness and all that shit? Here's what Nameless thinks. This is my pragmatic argument, pretty much. You should live as if life had meaning. You should go with life with the assertion that there's a meaning at the end of the tunnel, right? That what you're doing has purpose and meaning, because even if you were wrong in that assertion, you would live your entire life with that wrong assertion if it were wrong, but you would live a happy and fulfilling life. And you would have much less misery in your life. But if you go with the assertion that life has no meaning, even if you were right, even if you were right all along that life had no meaning, you would live an entire life devoid of all that pleasure, all that purpose, all that fulfillment that you could have, and it would be much harder. So my answer to you is live as if life had meaning, and just go with that assertion that there is meaning eventually, there's meaning to all this. And I mean, yes, it's meaningful, but it's meaningless at the same time. I made a video about how life is meaningless. It is meaningless, but in that meaninglessness, you can make it meaningful, in my opinion. Yes, it is a paradox, but just bear with me. But anyways, I hope you got something out of that video. And if you struggle right now, like with finding clarity and purpose in your life, and you feel like things have no meaning, okay? Just picture your life, like be honest, and like, how would your life look like right now if, you continue living that way with no meaning for, the following months, the following years? How would your life be like if you kept living into that nihilism? Like, what would be the implications of that? How would that affect your relationships? How would that affect your career? How would it affect your health? How would that affect you? Now you can see, I hope you can see that finding that meaning and that clarity and that purpose in life, really would pay off, right? I think it would help you out. So now imagine the inverse. What if instead of succumbing to that nihilism, then you found a way out of it, that you found clarity, that you found exactly what you want to do, that you have this strong purpose, and you wake up every single day refreshed knowing that? How would things be different in your life? How would that improve your relationships? How would that improve your health? How would that improve everything in your life? So if you think that finding clarity and purpose would be useful to you, right, then I want you to book a free consultation call with me. We'll pretty much do that. We'll bring awareness to your life, and we'll bring awareness to who you are right now and who you want to become. And that is the first step towards change. Thank you for watching. And don't forget to click on the bell and subscribe, because I'll release video a lot more often now. And don't forget to book your free consultation. I'll put a link right there and in the description. So thank you for watching. I'll talk to you next time. Peace.